going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now. Now, ladies and gents, we are back on a bid to improve the Dueling Book grind, featuring me, myself, Jamofi YGO. So I thought I'd start off with this little metric just to see where we are. Now, I played a couple of games today. Typically I tend to play a few more games, but there's been a few issues at home, a few things happening, which I'll probably mention in a video in the future. However, I've actually managed to win another match, believe it or not. I did actually lose one, but that was due to my opponent going AFK. I think I was waiting for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I just decided to quit the game because he was just literally, at first he was so slow playing, and then after that he just literally just wasn't responding. So I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna quit this game. I'll take the loss, I'll take the points loss, doesn't bother me. And I got out of there. So 5 losses isn't representative of where I'm at the moment. However, it is what it is. So just to let you guys know, we are on 137 and our experience is 23. Not the best, but it is what it is. So without wasting any more time, ladies and gents, let's get straight into it. Okay, ladies and gents, let's get straight into the duel, as it were. Now, I think in this match I was playing against Fluffles. Now, Fluffles are just the amount of drawing that this deck can do is just absolutely crazy. So I was basically just excuse me, basically watching him play solitaire for about 5 minutes as he comboed off his way to, I think he got to a VFD. Now, obviously, looking at my hand, my only interruption is infinite impermanence, which I thought, because I kind of thought that he was definitely going to go make VFD, I was going to try and hold it to try and prompt the VFD, but it didn't actually pan out the way that I thought it would. So he's going through his plays here. Goes into Fright for a Cruel Well for the second time. Makes True King of All Calamities, which was telegraphed, and sets a Call by the Grave. Not the most optimal of openings. And then proceeds to set one card. So yeah, it is what it is. So draw Ash Blossom for turn, which doesn't actually help my situation. Tried to fire off Abomination's Prism to try and prompt him to activate his True King of All Calamities, which I could chain in permanence. But yeah, unfortunately he lets that one go through, so I get a search. So I searched for Sarama because I thought to myself, you know what, eventually I'm gonna get a few monsters or unchained cards in grave and be able to kind of like just try and grind with my opponent. What I will say is, I think in the previous episode I made a bit of a misplay. I actually tried to activate the effect of Sarama to set my Abomination's Prison, which would have been an illegal play because Abomination's Prison unfortunately is not an unchained card, which would make it be a little bit broken, to be honest. Just getting unlimited number of searches each turn, which would be a bit crazy. But anyway, I don't do that in this game, as I definitely went over it and obviously learned from my mistake. So tried to activate infinite impermanence here on the VMD, and obviously he's thinking he's going to chain. So he chains, calls dark. Obviously I can't really do anything, so I'll proceed to set T-set basically and pass turn. So he draws a polymerization for turn. It has not really got the most optimal of hands, but in hindsight, what I'm thinking he should have done is definitely at least put True King of All Calamities into attack position and done some damage, because that would have been a viable strategy, to be honest. But he decides to just pass turn and just let me carry on. So on standby phase, he decides to call Calamities once again, and there's not a lot I can do once again. So he calls dark. I decide to set my Unchained Twins Iruha alongside my Rakia. So both of these guys are on field. Now I've also got a Abominable Chamber of the Unchained, which allows me to special summon one from hand or graveyard, which is really good. So that's live, and I've got 2 monsters that will definitely flow into into 2 other monsters, which allow me to further my plays. So obviously I don't decide to attack into anything. He draws a Frightful Patchwork for turn. Goes standby main, activates its Patchwork. I actually let that go through. I could have ashed it, to be honest, but I decided just to let him do what he's doing. I'm in a better position as it was, because his True King of all calamities is now basically a vanilla monster. He did not use that to the best of his ability, to be honest. He at least should have put some damage on board, because my monsters wouldn't have been able to float once it's under calamities, obviously. So bit of a misplay by him. So he flips up the Edge Imp chain and proceeds to battle phase, and then activates its effect, which obviously allows him to get a search for another Edge Imp chain, which again I allow to go through. He loses 300 because my Aruha had 1500 defense, and then he proceeds to main phase 2, normal summons Edge Imp chain, special sabers, and then proceeds into a, I believe it's an Appaloosa, yeah. So it goes straight into an Appaloosa for 4, which is a quite a few negations, to be honest, and then adds a Frightful Patchwork to hand. Now obviously Appaloosa for 4 with a set back row is probably not the most optimal of play, especially as he had a True King of all calamities on board and he's actually down in life points. He definitely should have done something with calamities. Mainly should have just attacked over some of the monsters that I had on board and just forced my hand in a few situations, which would have just drowned out or devalued a lot of my resources. But now that he's on a Appaloosa aboard the goddess, yes, it might negate some of my monster effects. However, what it won't do is I can basically use a number of effects, then beat over it, and he's got a clear field, and I've already got 2 monsters on board. So let's just continue with this now, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I top deck a Dark Hole for turn, which is just absolutely amazing. Now in this deck, Dark Hole is just free resources, especially if you draw it and you've still got a Unchained Soul of Disaster or Abominable Unchained in deck. So obviously, standby, it should have been main phase. I activate Dark Hole, which will just clear the field basically, but because my Unchained monsters got destroyed by card effect, I can special summon my Unchained Soul of Disaster, as well as my Abominable Unchained Soul. Then I activate my Abominable Unchained Soul. Because he was summoned, I can pitch a card from graveyard to pop 1 card on field. I'd proceed to pitch my Unchained Soul of Disaster, which was a little bit of an incorrect move, to be honest, because he did have the Core by the Grave, which now means I can't actually use its effect to either float or link off with one of my opponent's monsters. But nevertheless, it is what it is. So that gets banished. Those effects are negated until the end of the next turn. So I normal summon my Sarama. I decide to go straight into battle phase and do a bit of damage here. So I'll put 4,500 damage in. Then I was thinking about my next play, because mainly the reason why I thought I put a bit of damage on board is because I was fearful that if I committed to too many resources on board or did too many summons, which I'm currently on 3 at the moment, I would have played straight into Nibiru. So I thought, you know what, let me just put a little bit of damage on board while I assess the situation, which probably wasn't the best play, because I could have at least got 1 more monster on board, which potentially would have been a it could have been an OTK, to be honest, because I could have popped the Abominable Chamber of the Unchained with Sarama's effect and then set one of my monsters on board. Then that would have floated into another monster, which potentially could have been another Abominable Unchained Soul, and I would have been able to just attack for game basically. Wow, did a lot more damage, but overall I probably would have left him with about 200 life points, but it is what it is. So I proceed to link off, and then I go straight into my Unchained Soul of Rage. So obviously any special summon monster that hits the field, I'm just gonna link it off. So I end my turn, he draws, and he draws a Toy Vendor for turn. Activates his Toy Vendor, then I ash it, and then he proceeds to concede, ladies and gents. So we go straight into game 2. Now I didn't actually side any cards in, because for some reason I thought to myself, the ratios that I've got with regards to the deck which I will actually show you in the next episode, ladies and gents. I thought it was correct in terms of what I had, because I have a few kaijus in the main deck, and I do have a couple of dark holes, which I'm considering bumping up to 3, because in this deck it can potentially be a free board wipe, depending on how things pan out. So again, I let my opponent go first, and he just decides to just pop off with some crazy plays. This deck, Frightfur, just draws so many cards. It's unbelievable how many cards it can draw, especially with the setting and the resetting of Toy Vendor. Your resource game is strong in this deck, and I believe I think it was this game, my opponent actually had 8 cards left in deck after a couple of turns, which is crazy. He's able to cycle through a majority of his deck and see a lot of his cards. So he's doing his usual thing, summons a Frightfur Whale. Obviously, I can telegraph that the VFD is going to hit the board at some point, as he then searches for a Frightfur Fusion. And look at his hand already. He's got 8 cards in grave, and he's got 6 cards in hand, ladies and gents, which is absolutely crazy, whilst also having a Dolphin and a Frightfur Whale on board. So he decides to activate Fusion, banishing 2 monsters from his graveyard to then get another Frightfur Whale, which then telegraphs the True King of All Calamities, the most interactive card in the game. So he continues with his plays here, and I'm looking at this board and I'm thinking to myself, I need a dark hole and I need one now. So he sets 2, and he is in a pretty strong position. So I set 1, proceed to activate a Abomination's Prison, which again he allows to go through. I get an Aruha, activate Aruha's ability to special summon itself by popping a card on field, one of my own cards. Because it was in hand, it's not actually under calamities, but now that it's hit the field, I can't then float into another monster if it gets destroyed. However, my trap card is not a monster, so obviously my Abominable Chamber of the Unchained can then float into another monster, which in this case is definitely going to be Unchained Soul of Disaster. You do not want to draw into this card, and I've already got 1 in hand, which is never a good situation to be in. So I thought, you know what, let me get the second one out of deck. So basically I just delete my chances of actually drawing into this card, and it just allows me to have a little bit of a defensive wall. There's not much I can do. There's no point me attacking into any of his monsters. I'm not going to get any value out of it, so I just proceed to end phase. However, on main phase, which was something I was a little bit confused about at the time, because I was thinking, what's going on here? But he actually decides to go into another Frightfur Whale. He pops my Unchained Soul of Disaster. I tried to activate his effects, but obviously because I'm still in my own main phase 2, Calamities is still live, so there's nothing really I can do about it. Then I was like, my bad. So obviously he called Dark, he activates Vendor effects. This is all on my turn, by the way. Then he proceeds to his own turn. He's just got so much advantage at this point, because I believe anytime that I try to activate any of my monster effects, he's just going to chain Calamities, which means basically that my cards are not going to float. I watch him play for a little bit as I decide whether or not it's time to concede. I just wanted to see what lines of play he would go through. He does have actually 13 cards in deck and decreasing, because this deck just literally draws through your life, like it's crazy. So it's just adding Polymerization after Fusion Spell after Frightfur monster to hand. It's crazy, just drawing consistently. He actually draws a Forbidden Droplet, which is writings on the wall for me, to be honest. So I watch him play for a little bit longer. He activates Fluffle Sheep, obviously bouncing back his Dolphin back to hand. Specials Edging Chain, goes into a Crush Sheep, activates Penguin, and I believe I just scooped, because there was just no way that I was going to do anything, especially under Calamities. And I believe I did put in, yeah, Calamity is such a fun and interactive card, ladies and gents. Obviously, a lot of people have been calling it to be banned on the ban list, and I can see why. It's not a huge problem if you've got the right outs, but if you don't, then you're kind of stuck, and I just didn't draw into them, to be honest. So next time, next game, I decided to side in Nibiru, hence why I was taking so long to side. And we go straight in. Again, I let him go first. So again, he starts off his plays, very, very consistent deck, which I must say. And I have actually got a Fluffle deck semi-complete. I think I'm missing 1 or 2 components. I think I'm waiting on the wings to arrive, and just a few hand traps. But yeah, he carries on with his plays as usual, just drawing and just activating spell card after spell card to be able to do what he's doing. I decided to Ash his Frightful Patchwork because I didn't want him to just continually recur resources, but I think it was a bit of a bluff, to be honest, because let me view his graveyard. Actually, no, he did have one more. So we wanted to add a polymerization, but I think he was just trying to bait out my hand trap, which he did, to be fair. So again, he's able to do a few draws. He draws into his polymerization anyway, but obviously, as you can see from his hand, ladies and gents, he's not looking in the most healthiest of situations, mainly because he's got 3 polymerizations in hand now. Obviously, they are I don't believe it's not a once per turn, however it is an inherent minus, so it's not really the best situation to be in. So he normals Owl and then activates Owl's ability to fuse, which I think was a little bit weird, to be honest, considering he had 3 polymerizations in hand. He could have just did that play anyway, but then he identified that he made a mistake, because he's going to end up with a fusion monster on board and 3 polymerization and a Frightful Patchwork in hand, which is basically dead because he's got all his polymerizations in hand, so he can't actually do anything else. So once he realizes that he misplayed, he actually conceded the game. So I end up taking that one without actually playing out my turn, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is, ladies and gents. It is what it is. Anyway, that is the end of the duel. As always, if you did enjoy this content, ladies and gents, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I will definitely see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.